wherever you are on the spiritual spectrum, I'm very excited you are here. Because why? All of us, I think every one of us, we use words. And all of us, we have used words to actually really, really discourage or to hurt somebody before. And we have also used words that actually destroyed other people before. So we've been very careless sometimes with our words. So wherever you are on your spiritual journey, whether you believe in God or not, this is very exciting because you get to actually think about, am I actually using my words correctly or not? Okay? There's a Bible verse that we talked about last week. It said this: the tongue has the power of life and death. So literally, it's saying what we say with our words can literally kill someone. But if you actually use it wisely, then our words, we can actually bring life to someone. And I would say every single one of us, we got up this morning and we didn't think, okay, how can I cut down people today? Or how can I be really mean to my kids today? Or my husband and wife? Or my boyfriend or girlfriend? None of us, we got up this morning and said, how can I use my words to kill someone today? Right? But if anything, most of us, we probably got up this morning or this year, maybe beginning of the year, and we thought, man, I need to be more patient with my words. Or how can I be more kind with my words? Or how can I use my words to encourage someone else? Today, we're going to talk about complaining. Okay, complaining. What do you guys think? There was a survey done recently. What do you guys think are top 3 things that people complain about? Any guesses? Okay, guess. Huh? Hurricane? Okay, weather. Very good, very good, okay? So the top 1 list was actually pertaining to weather. Okay? So good job, Enoch. All right, what else? What else do you think people complain about? Okay, Jake? Parents? Parents? No, what? Karens? Oh, Karens. How does he know that phrase? Okay, Karens. Okay, so that's actually part of it. Yeah, people they meet out in public, people who are rude, people who skip line, people who are smelly, or, yes, Karens as well. Yeah. Okay, any other ones? Weight? Their weight? How'd you know? That was my number 1 complaint. Okay, about their weight, diet, eating. Okay, any other guesses? Yeah, Ellie? Gas prices. So finance. Okay. Ellie, do you pay for gas? Okay, very good. So you guys talked about it. It was weather, the weather, and also car as well was another top one. Whether they're driving, some people are driving too slow or too fast, or traffic. They also complain a lot about work, coworkers, okay, bosses. Another thing nowadays with technology, they say Wi-Fi is too slow, or customer service when they're making a phone call, they're not meeting their needs, or they're too slow, or things like that. Okay, can you guys resonate with that? Okay, so is complaining actually, is it a good thing? Is it a positive thing? Is it actually something that actually gives us life? Or is it possible that complaining, or life of complaining actually gives us death? Today's Bible text, it's going to come from Numbers chapter 11. We'll be reading a very, very interesting and fun story from the Bible. The rebel with them began to crave other food. And again, the Israelites started wailing and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna. Okay, so what's going on? Let me give you some of the background. So Israelites, okay, are in the desert. Why are they in the desert? They're in the desert because before they were actually slaves in a country called Egypt. Okay? And while they were in Egypt, they were slaves, and they were crying out to God, God, please save us. We don't want to be slaves anymore. Please save us. And so God sends them a hero named, what was his name? Moses. Okay, they send a hero named Moses, and Moses, with God, they bring them out. And now they're going to the promised land, but they're stuck in the desert. Okay, but good thing is God provided them with food. What was that food called? Manna. But what are they saying? They're like, manna? Come on. We had this for such a long time now. We did everything with it. We grinded it. We mixed it. We did a whole bunch of stuff with it, and we're tired of it. Now we want what? We want fish, cucumber, melon, leek, onion, garlic. We want all of these other things. How are we supposed to just eat manna? Okay, so that's the complaint. Let's see what happens next. We're going to skip a couple of verses. Moses, again, who is the hero, he's the leader, he's the main leader. He heard the people of every family wailing at the entrance of their tents. Meat, 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 meat. Cucumber, cucumber. We want more different food, okay? The Lord became exceedingly angry, and Moses was troubled. And now Moses asked the Lord, why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you that you put the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms as a nurse carries an infant to the land you promised an oath to their ancestors? Where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing at me, give us meat to eat. He's saying, God, I cannot carry all these people by myself. The burden is way too heavy for me. If this is how you are going to treat me, then please go ahead and kill me. If I have found favor in your eyes, and do not let me face my own ruin. So what happened? All these people are like, meat, 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 meat. And Moses is like, this is way too much. And so what does he do? He goes to God, and he's basically complaining to God now. He's saying, what am I supposed to do with these people? Where am I supposed to get all this meat? And then eventually he gets really, really angry, and now he says what? He says, just get rid of me. I don't want to be the leader anymore. I just want to die. This is way too much burden for me. And this is how God responds, and this will be the final part for our Bible verse. This is what God says. Tell the people, consecrate yourself in preparation for tomorrow when you will eat meat. Okay, so God says, you want meat? I'll give you meat. The Lord heard you when you wailed. If only we had meat to eat. We were better off in Egypt. Now the Lord will give you meat, and you will eat it. You will not eat it just for 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, but a whole month until it comes out of your nostrils. Okay? You want meat? I'll give you meat until it comes out of your nose. Okay? Who said God didn't have humor? And you loathe it because you have rejected the Lord, who is among you, and have wailed before him, saying, why did we ever leave Egypt? I'm going to share with you guys 3 different negative effects of complaining. Okay, 3 negative effects. The first one, it distorts your mind. Okay, it distorts your present, and it distorts your past as well. The first example that we see here is we actually see that God gives them free food. Okay, they don't have to work for it. They don't need to do anything. They have done absolutely nothing to actually deserve it. But they got free food. But what's going on? They're complaining about free food. Okay, can you imagine that? Can you imagine, I'm sure you have experienced this, or you've heard stories like this, where they give out free food at the homeless shelters and things like that, and they come and they complain about the food. Okay, and you're thinking, why are you complaining? It's free food. Don't you understand where you're at? You're at a desert. If anything, you might say, oh, maybe, but maybe the manna was not very good. Maybe it was nasty. Actually, it says here, God rained down manna for the people to eat. He gave them the grain of heaven. So it was heavenly food, it's saying. Human beings ate the what? Bread of angels. So it was angel bread. Okay? So it's actually saying, okay, again, we think of it and we're like, oh, maybe it wasn't that good, and maybe that's why they were complaining. No, but it actually says, this is the food that, heavenly people eat. Okay? So again, I don't know what that means, but just for me, what I imagine is, think of whatever the best food that you ate this week was, or this year was, whatever it was. And then just times that by, 500. And imagine how good that would be. Okay, I think it was very, very good. Again, it says it's bread of angels. But that's one of the things that complaining does. It doesn't matter if it's free. It doesn't matter if it's good or not. Once you start complaining, what happens? You start forgetting about the things that you actually do have, the good things that you have. Right? Instead of focusing on the things that you do have, most of the time when we complain about the things that, what? We don't have. And because of that, we forget about the things that we do actually have. And that's one of the things that it does. It distorts our mind to not see the present clearly. We just focus on the things that we don't have. But the second thing it does is it actually distorts our past as well. Look at what they said. They said, we ate fish, we had cucumbers, melon, leeks, onions, and garlic, which is true. And look at what they say. They say, and guess what? That was free too. But why are they tripping? Or why are they wrong? Because they were slaves. Okay? Yes, it was free, but why? Only because you guys are a bunch of slaves. Okay? So technically, it wasn't actually free. Okay? If anything, they probably just fattened it up so that they can actually work harder and more, if anything. But they forgot. You know what's really interesting? They were eating well in Egypt, but they cried out to God for freedom. They said, God, we don't care about all this food. We'd rather be free. But now they're complaining. Now they're saying, we'd rather go eat all this food and be slaves once again. That's what basically they're saying. Okay? But that's what, again, complaining does, doesn't it? It distorts our memory. And we go, oh, it was so good back then. When I was dating that girl, it was so good. I know I broke up with her, but it was so good back then. Why did I break up with her? All right, things like that. Okay? Again, we think that. Why? Because, again, we have memory issues. Okay, can you see that in your life? Can you see that your complaints are distorting your present, and it's also distorting the past as well? When they were slaves, what they would do is the Egyptians, as the Israelites were getting stronger and stronger and stronger, the Egyptians, they wanted to oppress them, but they were getting stronger and stronger. So what did? They would gather kids younger than 2, okay, little boys, and they would throw them in the river. But now, they're not thinking about their melon, meat, fish. And you look at that and you go, why would you do that? Why are you asking to be slaves again? Again, this is the fruit of complaining. One more example. Moses asked the Lord, and we read this, right? The interesting thing here is the people complain to Moses. So what does Moses do? Does he talk to the people? No. He complains now to God. He says, God, in the beginning it seems very real. It seems very genuine. He's just saying, this is too much for me. But as he goes on and on and on, he actually starts getting very angry and bitter, and to a point where he actually threatens God. He says, God, if you don't do this for me, kill me. I'm out. I'm done with this. He gives God an ultimatum. And this is one of the things we see with complaining, is that once you start to hear complaining, it's very, very contagious. Okay? We see in the beginning, some people just started complaining. And now, what happens? It says every single, I didn't put it here, but it says every single household, they were complaining. You guys ever had that where you guys maybe are going through a difficult situation? Maybe you guys went hiking, or you went camping, or you went on a mission trip. It was something very arduous, very difficult. And then everybody's having a hard time. But one person starts complaining. Oh, my legs hurt. Then what happens? Then everybody else starts complaining as well, yeah? And this is exactly what we see with this situation as well. Maybe it started with a group of people that are saying, I really miss meat. But they start complaining and they start go, I hate this manna. Oh, why are we here? Why are we in the desert? So much better there. But what happens? It doesn't just stay there. It doesn't stay with one person. But a lot of times complaint, it actually grows and grows and grows like a wildfire. And so much so that even Moses, he is affected by it. And now Moses is actually complaining to God as well. And so some of you guys have been in that kind of situation before, right? It could just take one coworker. It could be a very, very safe environment, or it could be a very friendly environment, workplace. But maybe a new person comes, or someone is very dissatisfied with life, and they start complaining. And so because one person starts complaining, another starts, and another starts. And soon after, you see your workplace becomes a culture of just complaining and complaining and complaining. And so again, it shows you how contagious complaining actually can be as well. One thing to notice here is that not all complaints are necessarily towards God. Okay? But I believe if you take complaint far enough, or if you stay in your complaint mode long enough, then I think it always goes to God. Okay, once again, not all complaints are against God, but if you stay there, if you continue to complain and complain and complain, in the end it ends up complaining to God. And this is exactly what we see here. Look at the language that Moses uses. He starts accusing God. He's saying, I didn't sign up for this. These are not my people. I don't care about them. It's about you. You did this. You wanted to save them. No, that wasn't the case, right? Moses actually really cared about these people. The Israelites, they wanted to get out of Egypt. But now, whose fault is it? It's God's fault. It's God's fault that they were slaves in the first place. It's God's fault that there's no food. It's God's fault that there's no meat. It's God's fault that it's miserable. And that's what a lot of times we end up with our complaints. We end up not just complaining about life, about our family, about our coworkers, about the weather, but we end up a lot of times seeing ourselves complaining. Maybe directly, some of you guys, but a lot of time indirectly, we actually blame God. And we say, God, you're not a good God after all. So it's really interesting. The Bible verse actually says, you have not just complained, but you have sinned against me. You have rejected me. Why? Because they're either directly or indirectly, they're complaining to God. They're saying, why is my life like this? Instead of being thankful for the things that God has given you, okay, you are complaining and being unhappy with things that you don't have. So you start blaming God. Okay? So again, those are some of the negative things of complaining. It distorts your present. It distorts your past. And also, it's very contagious. It's very toxic in our relationships as well. You guys can resonate with some of these? Yeah? Yeah? And that's why, again, you might say to me, oh, but, there's some positive things about complaining. But if I ask you, okay, do you want to hang out with your coworker or your friend or your family member that complains all the time? And you go, no, bye. Right? Because you see the negative effects of complaints. You enjoy complaining, but we don't want to be around people who complain, right? Because it brings us down. It wearies us. It burdens us. Okay? So now, what's the solution? Okay? What's the solution? How do we actually stop complaining? Okay, all of us, I think, know that we need to be more thankful. And we need to stop thinking about the negative. And we need to be more positive. But again, that's not natural, right? That's very, very difficult. The first thing we have to understand is we have to understand what complaint actually is. Okay? If we actually do an anatomy of complaint, if we take it apart, we have to understand that complaint, most of the time, it happens when our expectation and reality, there's a gap in between. Okay, there's an expectation that we do have, and then the reality, and there's a gap in between. And because of that, we complain. For example, I go, oh, today's weather, I'm hoping, is nice and breezy. Okay, we go outside, Texas weather, what happens? Humidity, and then sweat, right? And we go, again, expectation and reality, it doesn't line up. Okay, so when we have this heart of complaint, it's because your expectations are not being met. Okay, and some of us, we have unrealistic expectation, but sometimes we have very realistic expectations, but it's not met. It's very similar to anger, I think. Okay, a lot of us, we think anger is a bad, negative thing, but again, if you think of anger as a sign that your body actually gives off when you sense some kind of danger, then again, it's not necessarily a negative thing. So what I'm trying to say is when you feel like you need to complain, that in itself is your body telling you or your mind telling you there's something off. There's something wrong. Okay? When you go to your car and you see the engine light, you don't just go, oh, okay, I'll just cover it up and act like it's not there. Okay? So instead of that, what do you have to do? You have to actually go and try to fix it. Does that make sense? It's the same thing with us. When you feel like there's a complaint, or when you find yourself complaining, that means there's an issue. So there's two things that we can do. The first thing that we need to do is situations where we can actually do something about it. Okay? There's two kind of situations. There's times where we have expectation, but we're not meeting it. And there's two things we can do. First thing is we can actually do something about the situation. But there's other times where we cannot do anything about it. Okay, let's talk about the first one. Okay? So there's times where your coworkers, okay, they do something that annoy you. Okay? And so you are deeply annoyed by that. But you don't say anything. So instead, what do? You start complaining to your wife or your kids or your friends. Or the really bad thing is what? What do? We go to other coworkers and then we backstab. We say bad things about that coworker. Okay? But we talked about this last week. What do we actually need to do as Christians? We need to speak truth, but in love. Okay? So what the Bible tells us over and over and over and over again is if there's something you can do about it, go actually do it. Go speak to people in truth and love. Instead of complaining to other people or backstabbing them by gossiping about them, go and address the issue. Go and actually do something about it. Okay? But again, for a lot of us, we talked about this last week, that's really difficult for us. We have a difficult time speaking truth because we're scared of what they would think of us or the relationship would break down. But again, if you think about it, the things that we do, whether we're complaining to other people, which doesn't change the situation, or backstabbing them, or gossiping about them, which actually lowers them, if anything. Okay? So again, God is actually telling us, complaining is a bad thing, not because, okay, there's something wrong with complaining itself. That feeling of wanting to complain and your deep level of frustration, again, it's a sign. But if all you're doing is complaining, it actually solves nothing. If anything, it makes the situation worse. So, for Christians, okay, God is actually calling us Christians to have more courage, to be able to actually speak truth, but truth in love as well. Okay, number two, second thing. But there's times where we're stuck in a situation that there's nothing we can do about it. Like the weather. That's not something that we can change. Sometimes in our relationships, no matter how much you speak truth and love to your spouse or your friends about, hey, that really bothers me when you do that. Or maybe there's some certain habits that people do, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it, right? Because you can't change them. You can tell them, this annoys me, I really don't like it when you do that. But again, in the end, that's all you can do. So what are you supposed to do in a situation where there's nothing you can actually do? Well, I think Moses actually shows us a model here, which is he goes to God. Okay, he goes to someone who could actually do something. Does that make sense? And I think this is important. I think for some Christians, they go, oh, complaining itself is just a totally negative thing. So when I pray to God or talk to God, I can't even complain to God. I can't talk about negative things with God. Okay? Because there's some Christians who say negative emotions, it's a sign of bad faith or immature Christianity. But you see throughout the Bible, over and over and over again, you see people who actually complain to God. Okay? They're able to vent out their anger, their frustration, their depression to God. Okay, here's an example of this. I forgot to put it. Sorry. But there's a Psalms, okay, where it actually says day and night I bring my frustration and my complaint to you. And you listen and you save me. Okay? If any of you guys want I forgot the exact verse, but if you come to me afterwards, I could give you that. Okay? So again, David, he's actually bringing his complaints and his negative emotions actually to God. And we see Moses actually doing the same thing. Is this over the top? Yeah, a little bit too much. But he's actually bringing these things to God. And he actually recognizes, God, I'm in a situation, even if I want to listen to their complaint, I can't. There's way too many people, and I can't provide everybody with the meat. This is impossible. So he actually comes to God, who can actually do something about it. And he actually deals it with God. Now, not the most healthy manner, because he's giving God an ultimatum. It's not a relationship. It's more threatening. But God actually invites us to bring our complaint, bring our frustrations to him, and to actually talk to him about it. And to recognize that, hey, maybe we have complaints, maybe we have anger, maybe we are frustrated because we're not getting things that we need from other people. And maybe God is inviting us to actually bring those things to God and have those things that we need met by God instead. Like we talked about, complaint could be an extremely, extremely negative thing. But there's also, we talked about in the beginning, how words can be also, it can empower, it could bring life to people as well, right? So yes, there are people in our lives where they're very toxic. We use the word toxic, right? But there's also people in our lives where they join you or you're with them and you just feel like, man, I just talked to them for a little bit, but I feel so much better. There's people like that as well. One of those people, some of you guys might know him. His name is Nick Vujicic. Okay. I forgot to put the picture. But basically, he's a guy with no arms and no legs. Sorry, it would be so much more powerful. Today's morning was kind of crazy. But he has no legs and no arms. Okay? If anybody has a reason to complain, he would be one. And he actually said, in his documentary, he actually talks about how when he was 80 years old, he actually wanted to commit suicide. But he couldn't. Why? Because, again, he has no arms and no legs. So this is how horrible his life was. That even though he wanted to end his life, he can't even end his own life. So what he did was he actually told his dad, Dad, can you fill up the water, like bathtub with water? I just want to relax in there, because he enjoyed swimming. But that's how he wanted to end his life. But he didn't. And he started realizing, I can complain all day long about how I don't have arms. I don't have arms. I want arms. I want arms. I want legs. I want legs. I want legs. But he decided, okay, I'm going to change this attitude. I could complain all day long about the things that I don't have. But instead, I want to start thinking about the things that I do have. And you might say, what does he have? He has absolutely nothing. But this is what he said. Often people ask how I manage to be happy despite having no arms and no legs. The quick answer is that I have a choice. I can be angry about not having limbs, or I can be thankful that I have a purpose in God. So I choose gratitude. I choose gratitude. And this is what I think God wants, I think each and every one of us to hear today. Is that, yes, all of us, do we have things that that our needs are not met? Absolutely. Are there people that disappoint us? Absolutely. Are there annoying people in the world? Absolutely. Okay? But instead of focusing on the things that we don't have and complaining and complaining and complaining, instead, Jesus is calling us to actually look at the things that he has actually given to us. The good things that we do actually have. There are always positive things that we can look at. And so him, Nick Vujicic, he's actually a motivational speaker now. And one of the things he said was, the thing that I used to complain about the most is, he said, I'm never going to get married Because even if I do get married, he said, how can I can't even give her a hug. How can I be married? But he is married, by the way, now, and he has kids. And he said this. He said, I realize I can't hug her, but she could always hug me. Okay? She could always hug me. Okay? So there's always things that we can be thankful for. But more than that, we have a God who deeply cares about our frustrations. He deeply cares about our wants and our needs. And he wants to actually fulfill them. And he actually can fulfill the deepest desires. Now, he might not give us everything that we want. But only God can fulfill the deepest desires. And what am I mean by deepest desires? Every single one of us. I don't know what kind of life all of you guys had, but every one of us want to feel secure. All of us want to be loved. All of us want to be accepted just for who we are. And all of these things can be only found in God. Because God, who promises nothing will separate us from him. Not even life, not even death, not even demons or angels, nothing will be able to separate him. There is deep security. He says, to the cross I go and die. This is how much I love you. This is how much I care about you. I know all your sins. I know all the mistakes that you have made. I know all the complaints. I know all the negative things that came out of your mouth. And yet, I'm still willing to commit to you. Okay? These are the things that God is saying, I will provide you with. I will give you the deepest level of security, the deepest level of love that your heart is seeking for. And with that, then we can stop complaining. Not because we just had different techniques to stop complaining, but because our hearts are actually full. Because our hearts, we can actually start focusing on the good things that God has actually given to us. Then we can actually use our words, not for negativity, but to actually brighten up this world. Just like Nick Vujicic, we can choose gratitude. As we go into time of reflection, which is a time just to kind of reflect upon what we have heard, let's go into a time of reflection now.